Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter of a story and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, they're every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And if you're looking to support me, that's on my Patreon. Today, we are doing chapter 5 of a series of death. Marlot sat in his car in the office's parking lot, forcing down the last of the package of the meat substitute he'd brought for breakfast. No wonder the price was coming down on this stuff. It was horrible, and that was the only way any self-respecting predator would buy it. At least the price meant he didn't have to go hungry while he finished healing. But keeping the stuff down might become a problem if he had to eat it for too long. Got out of the car, locked it, and headed for the door. Good morning, Mr. Blacklaw. Morning, Elan. Marlot greeted his receptionist. The elephant looked him over, trying to hide her worry, but Marlot could smell it. That was the drawback with set recognition. Once the class got him in the habit of identifying them, he couldn't stop. It made it hard to pretend he didn't know she worried about him. Yeah, she worried about him. That, the fact he'd basically locked himself in his office from the start to the end of the day for almost a week didn't bode well for his productivity, which would impact hers. She stilled her trunk with a hand. How are you doing? Marlot forced a smile. I'm okay. I need to go over a few witnesses' report, then go out to run down lead on the last two bodies. I don't know how long I'll be gone. She brightened. Oh, that's good. The inside of her large ear gained a pink hue. I know. I need to stop letting what happened after affect work. Don't worry, I'm back to my old self. I'll be bringing those tax evaders to justice in no time. He almost headed for his office. How is Jesden? Are you two still seeing each other? He hasn't been by recently. The male elephant hadn't set foot in the office since Marlot had returned. Not even when he was out. Only a stale scent remained. Oh, yes, we are. His work's been keeping him busy. Construction, right? She nodded. She nodded. Tell him he's welcome to visit you here. Her concerns spiked, but she remained silent. I wondered if he looked that hungry, or so badly off he'd eat an employee's boyfriend. He'd heard stories. There were always stories of employers encouraging relationship among their workers so they wouldn't have to go out to hunt. But Marlot wasn't like that. No one was, he suspected. He closed the door behind him and headed for his desk. He sat and looked at the other desk, Trembor's desk, while his computer ran through its security check. He should remove it. He didn't need the reminder, but without it the room felt even emptier. It was too large. It was so large. Too large. They'd picked it because with the two of them sharing territories, they had more of everything to store, not to mention the things they'd gotten up to together these last weeks before. Why couldn't he stop thinking about him? The system was waiting for his login. He entered it and went through his messages. No updates, since he'd barely done any follow-up on the bodies. He transferred the relevant information to his pad. He would spend the morning out. He would talk to witnesses, track these prey, and bring at least one in before lunch. He had to. He couldn't keep Elahan employed on the basic RI pay. He needed the bonuses cloning cases gave him. Not to say he didn't want her productivity rating to drop too low. Maybe he should talk with her about finding new employment. He could definitely stretch his budget more without having to pay her. Not yet. He was fine. Yeah, something weird happened. I don't get why these are different fonts. Any of you hungry? Marlot growled, pushing the skinny wolf through Financial Holdings lobby. Marlot limped and his side hurt. I'll split the tax with you. She'd run. He tracked her down to his second cousin's home, and instead of turning herself over when he provided his ID, she'd run. When he caught up to her, she kicked and punched. She'd probably delayed his recovery by a week. The financial officer looked at him, then some chuckled, but he got shakes of the head. Unlike with the enforcers, it was considered bad form to eat one of their cases. An antelope motioned for him, and Marlowe pushed his quarry in that direction. Forcing her down in the chair, he rattled off the case number, noting the antelope's name. He was nicely muscular, but finance was firmly a high productivity environment. Need to a check. He had to keep adding names to his program, but Marlowe doubted he could afford him. Once the antelope indicated everything was in order, Marlowe left him to process the wolf. A week, and he'd get the bonus. Fortunately, that wasn't dependent on getting her to pay what she owed, because Marlowe had seen where she lived. She'd been just this side of homeless. Just this side of homelessness. Not for the bonus, he would have considered eating her himself. Marlowe eyed the package of artificial meat on his desk. This was a different brand, one that tasted just like the real thing, or so they claimed. He should eat it after the chase he'd been through to get the wolf. He needed to be fed to heal properly, if that stuff even had everything he needed. He fought the itch to research what it was made with. He was scared of what he'd see. After just one piece, he made a face. Real meat tasted nothing like this. But slowly he forced more down as he worked. Elahan entered after knocking. The mail came in. She handed him a few envelopes and left. 2 hunting insurance offers. Those companies were getting out of control. They were offering to cover the cost of a failed hunt for a small fee. Right, because that fee would stay small after a few missed hunts. The city should put an end to them. They were going to create a generation of hunters who either couldn't afford to pay for their kills on top of the insurance premium or would depend on the companies to eat. He ripped them apart after reading only a few lines. The third made him angrier. He'd hoped the revenue department had fixed the problem, but clearly not. Revenue Department, ID Division, a young sounding male answered. I would wonder if it was the same as the previous times, or they just all sounded the same. This is Model Blacklaw again. He gave his ID number. All right, Blacklaw, what can I do for you? The male sounded uncertain. You can tell me why it is you keep sending me other people's ID card? Sir? Malot sighed. Someone different then. I just received a card for Arlen Shines. He recited the numbers, and before you tell me, yes, I know your system claims this lost card never came in. It's always the same. I see this is the 6th time you've called about this. Yes, so you can understand why I'm getting tired of dealing with this problem? That's perfectly understandable. I too would be annoyed, the male said in that friendly tone that was starting to drive Marlowe insane. I see here that our technician looked over the system and didn't find any fault on our side of things. Really? Marlowe said dryly. So you're not sending out lost ID cards by accident? No, sir. So you're sending these cards on purpose? No, sir, that's not how the system works. The cards are only sent to the addresses registered to that number. My office's address is registered to this Shines number? No, of course not. It's his home address. You're saying the perfectly working system sent this card to an address that's not registered to the number. Of course not, sir. For something like that to happen, there would have to be a flaw in the system, and our technician went over it. It's working fine. What's your name? Excuse me? Your name, Mallet replied, sighing. I want to do a productivity check on you because there is no way the level of incompetence you're showing is raising your tax. Sir, the young man said, trying to sound stern, there's no call for threats. I'm only doing my job here, and I'm not allowed to give my name specifically because of people like you. If you aren't happy with the way the Revenue Department operates, we have a complaint line you can call. The number is available on the network. He caught his breath. Will there be anything else, sir? Had he really threatened the mail over this? He sighed. Just ask them to take another look. Something was missed. Sir, our technicians are the best out there. They don't miss anything. Malot looked at the card in his hand. Right. On the other hand, maybe you should go through the department's employee listing. It sounded like he'd find a lot of affordable people there, if this was what they considered good work. Will there be anything else? The male repeated, managing to sound offended. Malot rolled his eyes. He needed to work out how the Revenue Department productivity was calculated when he had the time. He disconnected the call. He turned the card in his hand. It wasn't his job. He could destroy it and no one would be the wiser, or drop it at a kiosk like the previous person who'd found it and had done, and Hope it would find its way to Harlan Shine this time, instead of ending up in his hands again. In the meantime, Shines would be freaking out about being a free meal without it. Probably wasn't. In fact, odds were he'd ordered a replacement the moment he realized he'd lost his card. Someone from the department was on the way right now to confirm his identity and issue the new card. Of course, that was something Marlot knew about because he'd researched the department while working for them as an RI. Most people didn't know that. He stood. What did he have to lose in returning it? The last time this happened, the male had been so overjoyed at getting it back, he'd given Marlot a meal's worth of meat. He could use that kind of gratitude today. And that concludes Chapter 5 of A Series of Death. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story, as well as the other books in the series, they are available on all major e-retailers. If you are looking for a different way to support me, that is on my Patreon. And should you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.